Not escape the ordinary and embark on a journey of self-discovery at our transformational Revive and Thrive retreat. Experience moments of clarity, find inner peace and unlock your true potential, surrounded by breathtaking natural beauty. There is only one spot left for our Revive and Thrive retreat this May. Don't miss your chance to join this life-changing experience with the most incredible group of women who are all cheering each other on. There is one more place available. Transform your life and reserve your place today. Welcome to the More to Life podcast. I am your host, Elle Mace, and today we are joined by Josh Connolly. Hi, Josh.
Hello.
Josh is a resilience and breathwork coach as well as an author. How exciting. Josh, just tell us a bit more about yourself.
Yeah, so we were just sort of joking off air there. I find it difficult to describe what I do nowadays, but look, lots of breath work, and I work predominantly really with people to help them, I think, understand themselves on a deeper level so that they can figure out how to get their needs met in their adult life. And I think a lot of my work has shown me that that takes us back to our childhoods and stuff like that. And then, as you said, I'm an author. I've got a book coming out in July called It's Them, Not You, How to Break Free from Toxic Parents and Reclaim Your Story. And that's bringing together all of the work that I've done in recent years and helping, again, to take people on a journey to what I would call healing, which is to understand yourself enough to be able to communicate your needs. Maybe
amazing.
That summarizes it.
Yeah. It is a hard question though, isn't it? When you've got so many parts to you and your business, it's hard to just put it in, because everyone says, oh, what's your kind of your like power title, but it's so hard to include it all into one thing. But that gives us a really great idea who you are. So just tell us, how did you get into this? Because when I was speaking to you before we went live, you said that you used to work in a factory.
Yeah, so I worked in a factory most of my life from the age of 17, 18. I got a job in a factory and my job was to sweep the floors and empty the bins. And I did work my way up through the organization, and I was like up in the office by the end of it, and I was transport manager. But through my own life experiences, I struggled desperately with the ways that I felt. And I had a problem with alcohol and anything else that you had going, if I'm honest with you, that I quit when I was 24. And that sort of changed my life, really. And then what happened around about 6.5 years ago, I realized I was falling back into depression. I was a few years sober by that point, but I was falling back into a depression. And this shapes a lot of what I believe, because I say I was falling back into depression. What was actually happening is I was starting to feel wholly appropriate based on my experiences. I had to go somewhere for most of my life every day, for the largest part of the day, to a place where I really, really didn't want to be and didn't enjoy, had no purpose, no direction. So as a result of that, I felt anxious and depressed all of the time. And I sort of knew that. And I knew that I had to make a change. And then I started volunteering with a charity actually first. And then one thing led to another. And I started doing some media work and spoke at a couple of conferences about children affected by parents drinking. And then eventually got to a place where I was able to train as a coach originally and then leave my job. Yeah. And the rest is sort of history.
Amazing. When you were saying you went sober at 24, like obviously myself working with people, I feel like that's quite young to go sober.
Certainly, probably less so now. I still think it's young. So I got sober 12 years ago, yeah? So I think Instagram had existed for about a year, maybe two. So like there was no sober communities or anything like that. Nobody at my age was getting sober. I didn't know anyone. It was seen as very, very strange, but I knew it was what I needed to do. My dad was an alcoholic and he died when I was a kid, and as a result of his drinking and his relationship with alcohol. And I knew that my life was in such a mess. I was living on a fold-out bed in my mum's living room. At the time, I had 4 children and I was £17,000 in debt. And the end was very, very near for me, if I'm honest with you. And quitting drinking was the last option, to be honest. It was like, right, there's nothing else I can do. Let me try and do this now. And it was and remains the best thing that I've ever done.
Yeah, definitely. So When did the drinking start for you?
I probably found alcohol when I was about 12 years old. And like I say all the time, it really worked for me. It changed my life. It made life feel and seem manageable when I found it. It was an attempt at a solution for me. I think it started causing me problems once there started being direct consequences, which my first daughter was born. I was 18 when my first daughter was born. And I think that's when it started to really cause problems, because I needed to start showing up. And the way that I was drinking meant that I couldn't remotely show up in the way that I needed to.
And the more you needed that control, did you find like the more out of control it became?
Yeah, it became like a sort of deadly cycle, really, of I drank to get away from how I felt. And the more I drank, the more problems I caused in my life and the more that I needed to run away from. So sort of compounding itself all of the time. I didn't see any other way. I didn't have any other tools to live life by at that stage. And that was sort of clear when I stopped drinking. Life got harder for me when I first stopped drinking, because now I'm 24 years old. I have 4 kids and I just didn't know how to show up to life, didn't know how to deal with the ways that I felt. And that's when I probably had some of my darkest times, was in that initial time of not drinking, because I didn't have any way to escape it.
Well, kids are challenging. They are. I've got 3 little ones, but let alone 4, and let alone 4 at 24 years old.
Yeah, no, exactly. The reality is me, I can't speak for anybody else, but I was too young to have children. 18 for me was far, far too young to be trying to raise a child. I didn't even know myself. I didn't know how to live in the world. And so I felt like a real failure. Having been through what I'd been through with my dad, I could see subconsciously, at least, although I don't think I could admit it to myself outwardly, I could see that I was failing them and that I was just restarting another cycle. I really never, ever wanted that to be the case. And yet there I was in my early 20s, exactly where I didn't want to be.
Yeah. But do you feel like when you were growing up, then obviously your dad passed away, did you have the support that a child needed to build up that emotional resilience?
No, my family had no support whatsoever. Like when my dad died, nobody talked about it in the family again. My mum was given no support when we were kids, and she dealt with it the best that she could. But a lot of that was to like just try and hope and pretend that everything was okay. And it wasn't. I don't think most kids get the adequate emotional support. I don't think we've built a society around children in the way that we should. I think children should be the central focus of everything, and they're not. They're not the focus at all. I think most children in Western culture are lacking emotional support. I think we're emotionally avoidant on the whole as people as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's exactly it. Like some really don't have the emotional support because there's an element of abandonment going on, and they don't have those people who are able to support them at all. And then others, they do have what we would think is loving and caring and supportive parents, but still there is a lack of support because, like you say, there's that kind of suppression of emotion, parents not knowing how to have conversations with people. So actually it's just easier to not talk about it at all.
Yeah. And we've created such busy lives for everyone now, like parents. We've had such a focus on making sure that both parents are back to work as quickly as they can be. And look, it's not that I think any of this is wrong. I'm not necessarily against any of it. But what I'm saying is that I think in society now, with a distinct lack of community in the way that there used to be, a lot of children have 2 pretty stressed parents, especially in a cost of living crisis and all that now and everything that's going on in the world. Their emotions get kind of left out, really, and they don't receive adequate support. And then I think we live in a world now that's all scratching its head, like, why is everybody struggling so much emotionally? And I think it's because nobody's there for anyone anymore. You know what I mean? So
no, definitely. I totally agree. And like our parents' generation and then their generation, even more so, it was literally, you do not talk about a thing, do you? Like no crying. You know, why are you crying? I mean, I still hear this now. Don't cry. Don't cry.
Yeah. That's a common line for a child that's crying. And certainly was true for me. I never learned how to soothe my emotions. So when alcohol came along and it did everything, of course I became obsessed with it. Even now, when I look at the sober sort of chat now, I think it overly focuses on alcohol being the problem. I know that it shouldn't be so cheap and it's probably a bit over glamorized and all of that stuff. But I'm like, people like me didn't drink too much alcohol because it was advertised badly or over glamorized. I drank alcohol in the way that I did because I was running away from the ways that I felt, and alcohol worked. So you could not advertise it at all, and I would have found alcohol.
Yeah.
Because of what I was running away from. That was the problem, what I was running away from. The healing journey that I've been on since then has been about looking for and trying to find ways to self-soothe and be able to be in my body safely.
Yeah. So that was 24 years old. You became sober. Then you went on for a period of time. When was it then that you just mentioned at the start, you got that kind of second bout of like, I feel depressed again?
Probably like, what are we now? So 12 years, I stopped at 24. So I would have been probably coming up 30 years old when I was in this job. And I just knew that I couldn't keep doing it every day. This is one of the things that I think is important about the ways that we talk about our distress and our emotions, is because I knew I felt the way that I felt because I didn't have any purpose and I didn't feel motivated in my job. I don't like to say what was happening was that I was struggling with my mental health, because I think that sounds negative. I think my mental health, if we're going to use that term, was doing exactly what it's supposed to do, which is make me feel uncomfortable so that I create the right and meaningful change in my life. Did I feel depressed and anxious every day? Yes. But I went to my job every day. I went to somewhere that I hated every day. So of course I felt anxious and depressed every day. What I did originally is, because I didn't really have any qualifications and I didn't want to just leave and go into another job that was the same as that one that I hated, I thought, let me start volunteering with a charity. Let me find a bit of purpose in my life that way. And maybe through that work, I'll find something that I'm passionate about. I could train as a volunteer and then eventually be able to leave my job. That's why I started the charity work. And yeah, within a couple of years, within a year or two of doing that, I left my job. I left when I was 30. So this process probably started when I was like, I don't know, 27, 28.
Yeah. And then fast forward to say, like, wow, complete 360.
Yeah, I've probably found new things to worry about and feel down about.
That's just such a refreshing and good point, though. It doesn't matter, because some people will look at you, I'm sure everyone will look at you and be like, you're super successful. But whether that's financially or in your business or whatever, but it doesn't mean that you don't have things that still will make you feel depressed and anxious, and you haven't still got things to move through.
Yeah. And I do think that, like, when the sort of mental health conversation was booming, when I first left my job like 6 years ago, I did do this myself as well. I would talk as like this person who had been through all of these struggles, and I came through it the other side, and life's different. And that's just not how it's worked for me. And I think we have to be really careful with that. I struggle, man. I'm like a sensitive person. I get overwhelmed easily. Shame is still there. I've worked on it a lot so it doesn't consume me, but I still now spend a lot of my time not enjoying what I've achieved, but just worrying about how and when it'll get taken away from me. In some ways, I've got different and new worries. But what I would say is that the utter despair that I was starting to feel isn't there, because I have purpose. I'm doing things in the world that I really love. And I feel like without being too cliche, the master of my own destiny, and that I'm not working at a job where I just got to do whatever I'm told. All of that stuff has helped immeasurably. But I think as humans beings, we're complex and messy, and we come with our own stuff. And I always find something to be struggling with, always.
Keep you safe in that little safe box, not too big for your boots. Just find something else that you need to work on.
Yeah. But I do think this, right? And I think this is why somatic work of any kind is the most important. I think Western culture has made talking the pinnacle. And I actually think that talking is good and we should do it. But actually, I think it's only because it opens you back up to your body. And then eventually you need to do the somatic work and understand your body and your nervous system. Because I often attach a rational reason to what I'm feeling. But ultimately, it's only because my body feels a certain way and I can't really figure out why it does. So actually, the more that I get into my body and learn about my body and try and do the more somatic work, that's what gives me peace. If I'm starting to feel overwhelmed and oversensed like I do, I could talk about it all day And I'd probably, in my case, feel worse the next day because I've ruminated and talked about it. If I led down and did a breath work, or if I did any other kind of somatic practice, I'd have a much better chance of feeling improved the next day than if I just talked about it all day. A lot of this is my body. It's the way that I feel on this earth.
Yeah. Are you someone that also is into your fitness and kind of moving your body in like an exertion way? Or is it more kind of feeling into your body, that like breath work type?
I go to the gym every day, most days, right? Unless like work or something prevents me. And although I'd be lying if I said that there's not a level of aesthetics in it, and I'd worry about how I look as much as anybody else. But the main reason I go every day is because if I don't, I lose my mind. And I lose my mind because I feel like I've got a little bit too much energy in my body. I have to get rid of it. And I've learned over the years that even if I don't sleep all night because of something's gone on, it's still better for me to get up early in the morning and go to the gym, because I will still have a better day than if I go, I'm too tired to go to the gym. And it's almost entirely sort of emotionally linked for me. I don't go to try and look better, although that definitely plays a role when I'm there. I go because I need it. Otherwise, I'm crazy. So yeah, I do both. Yeah.
Yeah. That all of that emotion and energy, instead of like it being within your body, it's just got to be let out. It's got to be moved through and sent somewhere else.
Exactly. So I play football as well. Football instantly. I never feel crap after football, because if I do 90 minutes where I'm in a battle, I'm running about the place, I'm getting rid of that, I feel in my body and I feel great after it. And I see it all the time with people that I work with. They go for a run and say, I was going for a run and I just started crying. And I'm like, yeah, that's because you brought yourself into your body. This is natural stuff that I feel like we've known since the beginning of time. And if we're not careful, we overcomplicate this whole conversation when the truth is simple.
Are you feeling tired, stressed out, and just like you can't catch a minute? Well, why don't you come along to our More to Life Spanish retreat this October the 4th to the 8th. We have a private luxury villa, a chef, lots and lots of workshops, yoga, hiking, fun, connections, friends, and excursions. Send a DM or an email to find out more. Yeah, like literally bring everything back down to the foundations, move your body, breathe. There's obviously, you do probably like intense breathwork sessions, but for a lot of people, they're not even breathing normally day-to-day life. They're too shallow, or because we're all just so stressed. And for some children, they've been stressing in that high cortisol state for so long. So it's just like those foundations, like being outside.
Yeah. And that stressed state that you're talking about has become my natural state.
Yeah.
So I have to work to not be like that, to not be in that stressed state. It's not easy to not be in it, but the basic fundamentals are the things that you've talked about, like human connection, breathing, moving my body. And I think the weird and wonderful stuff, the spangly stuff, comes after. You can do that, but are you doing your fundamentals? And I always know that, like, when I think I'm unfixable, which is like a type of feeling that I might have sometimes, it's normally because I'm not doing my fundamentals right. So I have to always say to myself, go back to doing a decent morning routine. And I don't mean like seize the day routine. I mean moving in the morning, bit of journaling and self-reflection. Make sure you've got an evening routine. Make sure you're connecting with right people in a healing way. Do that regularly for a couple of weeks. And if after 2 weeks you're still all over the place, then go and do the crazy thing that you think, because that's what my ego will do. I need to climb the Himalayas in just my pants or something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's why.
Yeah.
Like I need to go and find myself on a big expedition because nothing else working. And then I think to myself, but I haven't done a breath work for about 2 weeks. And I know that normally works. So let me try that first.
Yeah.
And then see if I want to climb a mountain.
Yeah, definitely. Again, society that's told us to do these extreme things. And also it's just the ego as well. It's like, if I climb the, I don't know, whatever, Snowdon, people are going to know about it. I'm going to get that external gratification as well. There's so many elements to all of that. When I think back to like my journey, 100% when I've been at my best mentally, I have literally done a 20-minute mindset routine in the morning, plus exercise, like you always exercise, but like a 20-minute clear the head, reset, just changes everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's simple, basic human stuff, right? Listen, the climbing the mountains and the stuff, I love all of that and I'm into it and I'll do it all. And I can bang up for all of that stuff. I do think you can learn about your stuff when you push yourself to the limit and all of that. But the point remains that we've both said, which is if you're struggling, do the basic stuff, get the basic stuff nailed first, make that your platform and then go from there. Because like, otherwise you're going to get lost going to do all of these other things and they just become a new way of bypassing. It's just a new way of avoiding your truth, avoiding being in your body and avoiding who you are.
Yeah, definitely. But so many people, they just can't do it. Like if you set someone a task, do breath work 3 days in a row for 10 minutes, many people just can't do it. That procrastination, resistance, there's like that ego. There's just something going on there that just stops them from doing it.
Yeah. And I do think that like in some ways you have to try and just live with this stuff in the day as much as you can. Because if you said to me, can you do breathwork every day for the next 10 days? It feels like a bit of a task. But if you said to me, could you do a little breathwork session before you go to bed tonight? It'll change your life. I think, all right, let me try that. I'll do that. And then tomorrow, let's do the same thing again. All right, let me try it again tonight. I've learned that from my sobriety because the idea of getting sober for the rest of my life when I was 24 felt completely unobtainable, right? But could I stay sober for another day? Well, let me give it a try. And now I'm over 12 years sober now. And that's from a daily, and still now, if you said to me, you won't drink, can you go your whole life without drinking? And I'd like to think the answer would be yes, but it still feels like a monumental task. Actually, let me take that a step further. If you said to me, you're going to live till you're 80, I think a lot of people go, wow, amazing. I'm going to live till I'm 80. I go, oh, that's a long time, man. My mind goes, I don't know if I could do that till 80. Like, can I do 60? Life's hard, man. I know that I'm not like everybody else. So I do have to live in the day. How do I make today a day I don't want to escape from? How do I do that? And then let me try that again tomorrow and we'll see how we get on. But don't tell me I've got to live till 80 because it feels too much.
Yeah. Don't overwhelm me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Have you managed to pinpoint, like, maybe not one reason, but a few reasons why you get overwhelmed quickly, why you're sensitive? Have you managed to kind of make connections to what that's about for you?
Well, there's a couple of things that I believe. One of them is the way my brain works, right? And there's lots of different terminology that people use today. You've got the neurodivergent conversation, which I think is amazing. I've seen it change a lot of people's lives. For me, the neurodivergent conversation came in the way that it has after I'd sort of already made sense in my case of what I called sensitivity. This is my personal experience. And like I say, some of my closest friends, like one of my best mates, Ed, he says he's ADHD and he's on medication for it and stuff like that. I think it's great that it's changed his life. I've got like a fear of labels now in many ways. When I decided I was an alcoholic, it changed my life. It connected me to community. I felt like seen and heard, like my experience made sense and like I could make sense of so much stuff in my life. And then eventually over time, I realized I was putting everything down to it. I treated you bad. Sorry, I'm sober, but alcoholic, right? That's just the way we are. I need to change that. And then I did a similar thing when I discovered the term empath. Oh, I'm just an empath. I'm sorry. I get oversensed easily. I get overwhelmed easily. I'm sorry. I tried to fix you. I'm sorry. I'm so codependent. And then I realized, actually, again, this has become problematic. And I'm using the term empath for just my sensitivity and not having any boundaries. And so what I've come to the realization is that I'm definitely a very sensitive person. I feel things deeper than perhaps the average person. I think the reason that is a cocktail of 100 million different things, some of which are biological and some of which are environmental. What I do know is that I can work on the things that I believe I have control over. I would typically be what people would describe as ADHD. I've done online tests and they all say that I'm really, really ADHD. But what I don't like is, let me give you an example of why I steer clear of defining it too clearly. My mind moves really, really quickly. So sometimes when people are talking, I talk over the end of them because I've already completed their sentence before I have, right? Before they have. I could either just keep doing that and say to you, sorry, I'm ADHD. Or I could think, That's a bit rude, talking over people. I want to try and change that. I don't want to be like that. I'd need a bit of understanding from you, but let me stop trying to talk over people's sentences because it's rude and I don't like it when people do it to me. So I prefer now to just try and understand who I am and how I relate to the world. You can call it whatever you want, and I'll describe my experience in the best way that I can. And that's what kind of works for me today. That might change tomorrow, but that's where I'm at now.
Yeah, I really like that. Obviously, it's all kind of like a newer thing, isn't it? This understanding of neurodivergent. And I hear so many different opinions on it for people that are ADHD, whether they want to be called ADHD, whether they don't, or there's still so many personal opinions around it. But I think you have to have the right narrative for you, which you found.
That's what matters the most. That's why I think it's great that the neurodivergent conversation exists. I think it's great. I think it's so good that people have found a way to describe their experience. And I think everybody should be free to describe their experience in the best way that works for them. And then we should all, as human beings, try and support one another in leaning into your experience in whatever way you want me to lean into it. And I will always try my best to speak to you. And look, I don't think it should be that difficult task for me to mirror the language back to you that you give me. If you said to me on this call at one point, I'm an alcoholic or whatever, then I would reflect that language back at you. Like I just use the language that you use.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just moving on to your breathwork piece, especially knowing this about you, you've got a lot going on in your head. Your head's always thinking about the next thing, 1,000 different things I can completely relate to. And I'm certainly someone who's trying to get into breathwork, but to get my head to shut up for like 5 minutes to try and do breath work, I'm finding really challenging. Like, how did you at the start manage to train yourself to, I would take 2 breaths or something and I'd be like, oh my God, I didn't message so-and-so back. I didn't send that email. And then I'm just like, on to the next thing.
Well, firstly, I'm doing one online tomorrow. It's free. You should come and do it because people have described the breathwork that I do as like the HIIT training of breathwork. Yeah.
Okay.
So you do a certain breathing pattern and it's mouth breathing. So it's not calm and slow. I play like house music, like bicep glue, and we're pushing ourselves. And I guarantee you that if you do that, particularly if you've never done it before in the style that I do it with, your brain will shut down after 5 or 10 minutes. It will shut down completely and you'll go to a different place. And that it's the only way in my life, apart from when I'm doing a competitive sport, breathwork's the only way in my life where it shuts my brain down completely and I can get crystal clear on what I need to do and where I need to go.
That's amazing. I need that in my life. I know everyone else listening also needs that in their life.
I honestly cannot quite explain the experience that you'll have with it. But like when I did the first online session, when I first did this, delivered it online, I had 70 people turn up. And within 4 sessions, I had 2,000 people turn up. That's from people just doing this and then going out and saying to people, you've got no idea of the experience that you're going to have. It makes your body shake. It's crazy. And then at the end, you are in a place of complete euphoria and complete stillness in your mind, complete clarity.
Yeah. Is there any resemblance to that moment for you there? Maybe not of clarity, but like that euphoria that you would have got 23, 22 years old doing whatever you could put your hands on, pills. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like doing drugs. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost exactly the same in that moment.
Yeah. God, imagine Ibiza if everyone just swapped out their drugs for this breath.
But listen, I do think that I was searching for the same thing. When I did the drugs, I was searching for the same thing that I'm searching for now, which is to try and be at peace with myself, to know that I am enough, to know that I don't need to be or do anything, that it's all right to be me. Drugs will do that. Breathwork will do that. And there's other somatic practices that will do that. Because what we're talking about is presence, right? When I'm in the present, so when I'm fully present in my body, right in this moment, not thinking about anything else, the past is irrelevant, the future's non-existent, and I'm here. And so I don't worry. And I do feel enough. And like what you do is, without being too cheesy, you come back to a place of love.
Yeah.
And I get this sense from you a little bit, but if you're anything like me, when I'm on a podcast like this and I'm in flow, or I'm on a stage and I'm talking and I'm in flow, I come off sometimes and I think to myself, I wish I could be as present as I am when I'm doing that with my kids, like all of the time. I just wish that I could just have that. I wish I could be as attentive as I am to what I'm doing when I'm with my kids as when I'm delivering something on stage or talking on a podcast. My truth is that I find it much more difficult. And so I have to find different ways to try and be as present as I can. And breathwork, like I promise you, a big breathwork session for most people will work in that way.
I'm definitely going to do that. But I also think fair play for sharing that, because I think most parents, especially parents that run their own business, well, and work for anyone, whatever, a lot of parents would agree with that, but also just feel that shame in maybe admitting that. I know for me, sure, I'm like trying to do a puzzle and then my head's like, oh, next Thursday I've got to do a presentation. And I'm like, no, my son's doing a puzzle, come on. It's like so hard.
Yeah. Sometimes my kids will say to me, can we play Uno without you not allowed your phone?
Oh.
And I'm like, but this is the thing. And I do a lot. I've worked with some top executives from massive companies. And whether I'm working with them or I'm working with junior people within a company, I think 98% of people, I've made that stat up, but you understand what I'm saying? 98% of the people do the same thing, which is in their day-to-day life, they give the best possible version of themselves to the people that they work with and interact on a day-to-day basis. And then they take home and they go through the front door and they give the worst version of themselves to the people that they care about the most. And by the way, we have control over that. We can make some change on that. And it's up to me as an individual to do the best that I can to be as present as I can to my kids. And my compassion comes from knowing that I really do my best. And rather than ignore it and pretend that I'm not present with my kids, I own it and I know that it's hard for me. And then I work on it and I do my best. I do the best that I can to be present with them. And I do things from locking my phone and actively putting it in the kitchen, then going and being actively with my kids. You don't get to have the fruits of a brain like mine or a head like mine, which is busy and intuitive, and you can't enjoy the fruits of that without the opposite, which is difficulty being present and, hard to slow down. So if I'm going to enjoy the fruits of it, which I feel like I am, it's my responsibility to try my best to be as present as I can with the kids. And listen, the truth is I am very good at it, but I'm working on it.
Yeah, so honest. It's the reality. The best thing you can do is that acceptance and work on it. The worst thing you can do is shame yourself and allow that feeling of guilt to sit there too long. Like, I'm guilty. Okay, let's do something about it, rather than like, oh, I'm so awful, and just feel like that for days.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? Shame can't survive in conversations like this.
No.
Shame survives in darkness, right? Shame survives when I go, oh my God, I'm such a terrible dad. I can't even be present with my kids. I can't tell anybody about this. That's shame. And then I fester on it and then I get worse and then it compounds itself. I don't think I've ever said what I've just said to you about struggling to be present with my kids in front of anyone and ever had any other reaction than seeing a sense when they're parents, a sense of, oh, thank God you said that because I'm the same. And then shame dissipates then. And then you're much more likely after a conversation like that to go home, in my case, play Uno without my phone. I'm way more likely to do that now than if I just pretended that I meditate in the morning and do all of this, then I'm nail it with my kids. That's shame. That's me hiding. When I do the truth, I'm like, I feel it and I get to create a new story as a result.
Yeah. Activating that conversation out loud with someone else also brings it to that different part of the brain as well, where you're not just thinking about it yourself and spiraling. You've outwardly had that conversation. So it's so much more present as well, because I know later on tonight when they're doing my thing with the kids, I'll be reflecting on the conversation I had with Josh, and it's even more present in you.
Yeah. What you described there, isn't it, is the difference between ruminating, which is really not good for you, which is when you're going over all that crap in your head, and then saying it out loud to somebody. And then when you say it out loud, you realize, and I've said this saying before, but I'll say it again, when you say things out loud, you realize the things that you think keep you alone in the world actually connect you to more people than you could ever imagine. That's the one thing that I've learned in group spaces more than anything is I run a men's space once a month, for example, and I'll be stood in a circle and I'll hear a man say, and I've really struggled with X, Y, and Z. And a part of me just lifts and becomes free because I'm like, I've struggled with that all my life and I've never said it. I've just left it over here and you've said it and it's nothing. And we've all hummed and all gone, fuck yeah, man, we're all the same. And you realize you're not alone.
Yeah. definitely vulnerability, the hardest thing to do, especially for those of us with an ego, but the fastest way to connect.
100%. Without doubt, yeah.
Oh, Josh, it's been an absolute pleasure. I could actually talk to you forever and ever. And I feel like I've got so many more things to ask you. But what would be then, just to wrap it up, like, we've covered off so much. And we haven't even covered off the topic that I was going to talk to you about, but maybe another day.
We'll have to do a round 2. I'll be open to a round 2 for sure, because I know I talk too much.
Off this podcast. What is then your number one tip for anyone that is, I think the number one tip for anyone that is having these bouts of like, oh, am I depressed? I'm low, or I feel a bit numb. I know that a lot of people, men and women at the moment, I speak to them, they feel like they're kind of bubbling away. They're on the edge of crying at like the smallest things. Like when you're feeling like that.
What would my number one piece of advice be? Forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for being where you are, for whatever you're ruminating on. Forgive yourself. You're a human being, and this is a Gabor Mate quote I'll give you. You're a human being who hasn't yet found a better way to soothe your pain. Forgive yourself. And I think that can then become a platform to do something, to see yourself clearly and to say, you know what, I can make change. I can make change in my life. Today, I can make a baby step towards change. And all of that stuff that we've talked about, you're not alone. When I'm in the darkness, I think there's nobody that can help me. And that there's nobody that's ever felt or been where I am. I'm not going to get out of it this time. That's what I think every time I get there. But the truth is that there's so many people that have been there. And there's so many people that do get through it. And you will find a way. And there's a great quote, I can't remember who it is, but I think it's like an ancient philosopher that says, emotions don't believe in one another. So when you're in complete sadness, sadness doesn't believe in joy. But the opposite's true. If you ever get back to joy, joy doesn't believe in sadness either. When you're fully in joy, you're just in it. So yeah, I don't know how coherent that is, but that's what I would say. Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much. Also, your top tip is to come to your next breathwork session, which right in this moment is tomorrow, but when this podcast comes out, it is not. So when is your breathwork sessions? I run an online community where we do them regularly, but there's a free one on my website. If you go to my website, I'm pretty sure there's a free one on there. I'm almost positive. Perfect. And what's your website and your Instagram handle? Website's joshconnolly.co.uk and my Instagram is josh_FFW. Excellent. Amazing. Thank you so much, Josh. Have a fabulous day. Pleasure. Thank you. If you enjoyed listening to this episode, then please head over to give us a rating. We would really, really appreciate that. And as a return, send us a screenshot of your rating and we will send you a free 45-minute hypnosis for absolute daily motivation. This is a must listen to every day in order to create your best future self.